necessarily an unhealthy thing to get people into agencies who are a bit cynical perhaps and take a fresh look at the agency, yet it's quite another to put forward nominees who are like 6 eggs short of a dozen, which often happens. And in the case when it does happen, the president, more often than not, has gone on to defend his appointments with a series of, well, we have to label it untruths about their credentials. You have been charged with the incredible task of cataloging the number of untruths that this president has trotted out thus far, only in nearly 11 months of his presidency. How's it going, David?
Well, we actually need a whole team of people to do it. It's not just me, and it takes a lot of time. As you know, there are all these fact checkers out there. They've totaled up. They say Trump has said 1,000 untrue things. We set a much higher standards. We said, look, it needs to just be demonstrably and blatantly untrue. So we didn't count his crazy story about General Pershing. We don't count it when he gets some economic statistics off by a little bit. We say it needs to be demonstrably and really substantially untrue. And we've counted 103 distinct untruths, falsehoods, lies that he has told in his first 10 months in office. So there are.
Give us an example of your criteria, your top 3 that fall into the category pants on fire, lie, versus all of the other subtle untruths or, misappropriations of the truth.
Oh, look, a lot of these we know, right? It's a blatant lie about his inauguration size crowd. It's the more substantive stuff. It's the stuff saying that we have the highest taxes in the world, which we clearly do not. So we basically try to take the most favorable interpretation. We say, is there any way you can justify this, and say it's kind of a matter of political debate, and if the answer is no, we count it. And then what we just did was we compared it, at the request of Trump supporters, we compared that pace to Obama's pace of telling falsehoods.
So, Tim, you read this piece with such intrigue that you sat down and wrote a rebuttal to the New York Times piece.
I did, and I did not question the premise of the piece, that Donald Trump is an exceptional, extraordinary liar, even among politicians, and certainly compared to Barack Obama. But I don't think it's a proper use of sort of data journalism to say we're going to count up these lies, and part of the way I think, because I don't think they actually are counting the lies. I looked at the New York Times list, a very short list of Obama lies, and the first thing I did is I searched for my favorite Obama lie. In his first State of the Union, he said, "We have excluded lobbyists from policy-making jobs," which is one of his campaign promises. And there were 36 recently registered lobbyists in policy-making jobs, including a Goldman Sachs lobbyist as a chief of staff at Treasury and 4 former lobbyists in his cabinet. That was a lie. That was a blatant falsehood that didn't make the New York Times list. And you look at some of this, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, was counted as one lie, even though he said it at least 30 times as president. And in my rebuttal blog post, I found the first 3 that came to my mind. Only one of those, if you like your plan, you can keep it, showed up in this. I just think that counting lies and charting them and doing this is a silly thing, because you're not going to catch it. You did not have the New York Times. David Lee and your team of journalists did not go through every single statement the president made, and you missed a bunch of Obama's lies. So again, I agree Trump's a much bigger liar, much more falsehoods, accidental and intentional, than Obama. But why didn't you have in there, if we have excluded lobbyists from policy-making jobs? Wasn't that a significant, clearly false statement?
You want us to apply a different standard to Obama and Trump, and we applied the same standard, Tim. So that's a great example of the kind of thing we didn't include for Trump. We looked at that. They did exclude a lot of lobbyists from jobs, so we said under the most generous interpretation, we took all those out for Trump, and we said, look, we're not going to give Obama a different standard than Trump. And when you do it, what you end up seeing is that Obama definitely said some untrue things. We know him. You know, the fact that he said if you like your health insurance plan, you can keep it, that was false. Obama said false things about the high school dropout rate. But when you compare the same standard for Obama and Trump rather than doing different standards, you just end up seeing that the two of them are not close at all.
I think you don't have a
Trump
standard.
just tells many, many more untruths than Obama does.
I agree with that, but I don't think you have a standard for Obama. If when he says, we have excluded lobbyists, that counts as true because there were some lobbyists who didn't get hired. That's the parsing that the Obama White House gave me when I asked them about it 8 years ago. ago, 7 years ago.
Oh,
and
no, look, if you wanted us to do a if you could find ones that we excluded from Trump that were similar to that or included for Trump, I agree that would be fair. But there are dozens and dozens of the ones, just like that lobbyist one for Trump, the crazy story about General Pershing, that's clearly false, but we didn't include it because under the most generous definition, you could see someone defending it. So we did the same standard for Obama and for Trump. And you're right, you could say, look, these 10 things about Trump you should have included, and these 10 about Obama you should have included. But when you do the same standard, you really see there's no comparison between the two of them.
But Tim, just to underline, you can see that Donald Trump exaggerates far more than President Obama did.
Than any politician I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right.
He said that.
Yeah,
it's
right.
true.
Peggy, what do you think?
I'm wondering if there has been, off the top of my head, I can't think, number of Trump lies versus Obama. I bet Trump wins. But has Trump had an equivalent in terms of policy impact and implications of, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your plan, you can keep your plan. That strikes me as the biggest political lie of the past 10 years or so.
What about the tax bill?
But it hasn't passed yet for one.
But Peggy brings up an interesting point. Obviously, Trump wins the volume battle, but if you say lies that caused harm versus not believing it was a major piece of legislation that was his defining piece of legislation, was built on that. She does bring up an interesting
and this one, the central critique, one of the central critiques of Romney in the 2012 campaign. Remember the motto from the Obama campaign: Osama bin Laden is dead and General Motors is alive. And so then he would go from the GM and say, "You said let Detroit go bankrupt." And he said in one of the debates, I want to get the exact quote because to prove that it's a lie, I think by any standard. He said, Obama said, the federal government, Romney had said, the federal government should provide guarantees for post-bankruptcy financing and assure car buyers that their warranties are not at risk. But Obama then said, you were very clear that you would not provide government assistance to the U.S. auto companies, even if they underwent bankruptcy. You put those two statements side by side, it's very clear. Romney said, we should have government guarantees. Obama said, you said there won't be any government guarantees. That doesn't show up in the New York Times lie list. That was at the heart of Obama's criticism, along with the fact that if you like your plan, you can keep it, was the single most frequent defense of Obama's central piece of legislation. So I could make the argument that the heart of Obama's campaign was built on standard political lies.
But Trump is still a much bigger liar.
Yes.
Look, we can go back.
frequent.
Obama told falsehoods. Bush told falsehoods, most famously about Iraq and weapons of mass destruction. Trump tells falsehoods about everything. He lies about the crime rate. He lies about immigration. He lies about where Barack Obama was born. He lies about how taxed we are as a nation. He lies about what his health care bill would do. And so I don't think Trump's lies are just the sort of off-the-cuff, funny stuff about what someone said. They very much are about policy, and they're central to his strategy. To me, the main difference is this. When George W. Bush was made aware of something he said that wasn't true, he stopped saying it. When Barack Obama was made aware of something that wasn't true, he stopped saying it. People could argue about it, but blatant untruths, they stopped. What Trump does is he tries to discredit the people who are pointing out his falsehoods, whether those people are FBI agents, CIA agents, federal judges, scientists, you name it. And I think that's really dangerous to our democratic culture.
He's also undermining the behavior of truth in general, and that's the big problem.
And remember, his